This is a tough conversation for me to have, but it's something that I think is holding us back from our friendship. And I think it's something I just need to get off my chest. Is that cool with you?
I'm curious, genuinely. Does our relationship mean anything to you?
Hello, guys. Welcome to another episode of The Powerful Man Show. I'm here with Tim, and we're going to talk about how to deal with difficult conversations. That was a horrible intro, but anyway, let's talk about difficult conversations.
Yeah, let's. Wow, so much to go into with this one. I'm curious, what's one of the most difficult conversations you've had to have?
Wow. On the spot. It's not like one jumps out at me right away. You and I have had difficult conversations together. Mm-hmm. I've had difficult conversations in a lot of areas of my life. With my parents, with you and other business situations, friends, with my wife.
How have you handled them?
You know, usually I'm super nervous. I've had them on two different stages, right? In the past, I was really I'd avoid them, right? Mm-hmm. When I was thinking myself as a business owner in my early 20s. And then I'd rush into them like a bull in a china shop and just like go in them with ultra aggression to push past that fear. Now I think the way I handle them is I come into them with this idea we talked about in a previous episode of clearing the mud off the glass. When I come into those difficult conversations with that metaphor in mind, it allows me to be... What are you laughing at?
I'm just thinking about some of the frames you've used with me in the past when we have these conversations. It's just funny.
Well, yeah, in the past, you and another coach, Arthur, have accused me of being too nice around him. And then he told me to be more straightforward. And since then, you told me to go back to being nice. But right now, I just shoot it straight. I'm like, you know what? I think I'm so secure with myself and with who I am that I'm not as worried of the outcome. You know, so I value the outcome. Like if you and I were to have a difficult conversation, I value our relationship. I don't want that to end, but I'm not worried about what you think of me because that's on you, not me. Mm-hmm. So if I come across directly, your interpretation of that is your interpretation.
Yep.
And it's not my baggage to handle.
So I agree. And I'm curious though, what about having a conversation with somebody who may not necessarily see it that way? All right.
Okay.
Somebody who may not do the work, because we do the work, right?
Yep.
The work.
Yeah, usually in that case, what I try to do in the best version of myself, which doesn't always show up, then I try to go back to what the older version before you and Arthur told me. So I try to do it nicely. So I'll use a version of, the sandwich compliment, right? Compliment, critique, compliment. So it could be something like, Tim, one of the things I love about you is you always show up as your authentic self. You always do that and you always honor your routines. Sometimes it can be frustrating when you don't show up on time for meetings and other things that I'm waiting for because I showed up out of respect. But when you do show up, we always get the work done, right? So that's an example of, compliment, criticism, compliment, kind of a classic way to have those conversations. But you can also do it in difficult ones. And I want to hear your version too. But something I'll do is call it out. So it might go like, hey, man, this is a tough conversation for me to have, but it's something that I think is holding us back from our friendship. And I think it's something I just need to get off my chest. Is that cool with you? Right? So you're nodding your head yes. So I've already gotten buy-in for the conversation. And I've already kind of called the elephant out in the room. Because if it's difficult for me, then there's going to be some kind of energetic exchange or whatever. You're going to know something's up. Whether you believe it to be the same difficulty or not, there's something for you too. There's a charge. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, I think for me, I'm thinking of when I had to have with my dad right before, literally in the airport coming here.
Okay.
Yeah, because of how he spoke to Amelia, quite honestly. Amelia didn't even recognize they'd spoken to her in a certain way, but because I'd grown up with him speaking a certain way and been overly critical and all that, I think I've got such a short fuse for it now. I just won't tolerate it whatsoever. And her and I that's one of the rules for her and I. We speak to each other respectfully, which includes not calling names and so on. And my dad was just outright rude. So much so I was going to get up from we're in a restaurant at a table. I was going to leave him there. I had time to get a hotel room that night. I was done with it. But I didn't. I was able to breathe like I am now. But anyway, in the airport, when I was coming here, I hadn't had a chance to speak with him about it. But equally, there's no way I was going to let that happen again. So in that conversation, I went into it assuming the best and maintaining some level of curiosity with it, which isn't always easy to do depending on the person you're doing it with. Start looked something like, I called it out just like you said a moment ago too. Hey Dad, I just have something I need to share with you. And I'm sharing it because you're important to me. Our relationship's important to me. I want to continue to enjoy spending time with you together. And I know you never mean to offend anybody. I know you never mean to upset people. And when we were at dinner the other night with Amelia, it wasn't cool how you responded to her when you said bum, 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 bum. I get that it wasn't a big deal for her, but for her and I, we don't speak to each other that way. So I'm not going to allow anyone to talk to her that way. So for you and I to spend time together in the future, I just need you to know where I stand, because if this comes up again, it's not going to work for me. That was a little bit of a firmer boundary delivered in a soft way still. But he got the message. He didn't validate, but he got the message, and he just, so.
But we did that. Let's break that down for a second, because you did that really well. And so for the list, you and I do this all the time. We coach it all the time, so it comes naturally. But for the guys listening to this, it wouldn't, right? So what you did there is you called it out. You also said it in a positive way, like, look, Dad, I know you would never mean to offend anybody, which is just a global truth, right? Most people don't want to be dicks, or at least come across. It just comes out. And you also said, hey, you pre-framed what the outcome is. Your relationship means a lot to me, and I want us to be able to add. So we use this in the hidden motives technique. A version of this is you're leading with the outcome. Here is what I want.
Yep.
And you came up with that at the beginning of it. So your dad knows this conversation is not going to be good. Okay. Or I shouldn't say good, but you get what I'm saying. Yeah. Or it's going to be about him, and it's not going to be something you enjoyed. At the same time, you're also saying, hey Dad, you're okay. I'm okay. Like, I'm not abandoning you. I'm not leaving you. I'm not ending our relationship as friendship or whatever else it is. So you've set the stage for this being somewhat of a safe space for him to receive it.
Yeah, I didn't even think of it like that, but yeah, I think you're right. Because he definitely received it, which was great. I think in the past, I would either not said anything, and just out of fear, quite frankly. Then similar to you, I think the second phase would have been anger. So that would have been the second evolution of how I handled those conversations, which equally wasn't healthy or good for me or for anyone. And the third phase, and I'm always looking to get, we both are, right? Always looking to get better at these things. But the third phase has been more so this. I think you're great with it. I think you do a really good job. I think communication in general, you're really good with.
Continue.
Yeah. So at the moment of insight, I think you do a great job with it. I think for me, this concept in particular, how to handle hard conversations, the thing that keeps coming back for me when I think about how I do these is assuming the best.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah, I always do my best to assume the best in the other person, and typically whenever I do that, it lowers their guard.
Yep.
And then it just becomes easier.
Yeah. Something I'm struggling with right now is there's somebody that's in my life that I've had difficult conversations with, but they don't receive them. Like they'll come back and say, nah, you're wrong. I thought about it. You're wrong. And the difficult conversation is around how they're showing up. Right. And, we like to use the word in our space, they're not coachable. And they've asked for feedback, in general. And you come back and say, hey, man, you may not know this, but you're showing up in this way. Like you're gossiping about other people behind their back, you're politicizing, you're calling people to insert your opinion, so ahead of time, which is very Machiavellian or strategic. And and I'm in a position for this person in particular that that I have some control, in a business realm. How do you handle it? This is my question, because I'm really struggling with this. Is how do you handle it with that individual when you've gone to them multiple times and tried to give them feedback and they keep coming back? And this feedback can be consensus based. In other words, hey, 5 people have talked to me about your behavior or whatever the number could be, and I'm the one communicating it to you. And they come back and go, yeah, I really thought about it. Nope, they're wrong. You're wrong.
Wow, yeah. It's a tough one. The thing that comes to mind for me, so if I was dealing with that, I think how I would probably handle that is I begin to question, are they even aware of how they're showing up? That's probably the first thing I'd ask. Like, are you interested in changing? Like, do you care about our relationship? Because I'm trying to think, if someone came to me and they said to me, hey, this is how you are being received, and I didn't necessarily agree with it. If I respected that person, and if I cared for that person, if I cared for that relationship, even though I didn't see it necessarily, I would be open-minded to how might I be able to change my behavior to help that person get what they want. So if it was you, for example, and I didn't see it, then I'd probably ask you some more questions around what it is you're looking for me to do, and why. I'd want to understand why as well, and where it comes from. And then I'd make an effort. So if that person isn't making an effort, I think what I'd ask them is, hey, I'm curious, genuinely, does our relationship mean anything to you? And if they said no, okay, that's great to know. If they said yeah, they'd probably say why. Well, do you understand what it feels like? Do you get what it comes across like when you respond this way? And I imagine they don't. If they did, then how do you see the juxtaposition between those things? So that's how I would handle it anyway. Maintain curiosity, continue to assume the best, and ask them. I don't know if that's helpful or not.
It's not, but that's okay. I think I get what you're saying. In this particular situation, it's a little bit more unique. Difficult conversations are difficult, right? They are by nature to have them. And in business, we talk about, we use new paradigms. So instead of firing somebody, we let somebody find a better career, right? We use these paradigms in business to make ourselves feel better about those conversations. Like, I need to let somebody find their actual true passion, which is another way of saying I got to fire Steve, right? Steve's an asshole, or he's not performing. I got to fire him. Nowadays, we say, I need to let Steve go find his true calling or whatever. But when it comes to other conversations, like a lot of guys that listen to this show are having problems in their marriage. Very common for us to talk to men who either have had affairs, emotionally or otherwise, but more commonly, the woman has had an affair emotionally or otherwise. And so how do they have those conversations in a way that has tact? That's a difficult conversation to have. Or they're in a sexless marriage, right? They're in a sexless marriage. Let's use that as a scenario, okay? Let me just come up with a guy that both of us know. I won't say the person's name clearly, but so this person's in a sexless marriage and their wife is checked out. She's on Instagram all the time. She has zero interest in him almost as a human. How does he have the difficult conversation of, hey, we either need to both work on ourselves or we need to cut ties?
Yeah, do you know what just came to mind for me then when we keep saying difficult conversations? I think it's a good thing to just drop in there. A difficult conversation is difficult because we care.
Yep, that's a good point.
Yeah, so if you're in a sexless marriage, it's because you care and you don't want to be in a sexless marriage and you want to be intimate with this particular person. And I think it's a great thing to remind who your partner of, right? You're going to bring up the topic. So let's just say it's Steve.
Well, I'm going to interrupt for a second because I'm going back. I want a slight tweak to what you're saying. It's because we care, but sometimes it's because we care what other people think of us or about us. So you may not care about Steve, but you're worried of what Steve thinks about you or what other people are going to think about you when you fire Steve.
Got it. Yeah. Okay. So going to the sexless marriage piece.
Sorry, Steve.
We can never bring anyone on the team called Steve. Just thinking, anyone on the team called Steve? No. Yeah, because I've had these conversations before, and when I've had them with Amelia, I've just reminded her, hey, I want to be intimate with you. Like I'm frustrated right now because I want this, and I want this with you. If I were you, I'd be more concerned if I wasn't bringing it up, because the likelihood is if I'm not bringing it up and I still want it, then that's going to lead to unhealthy things, right? And if you don't want it, that's cool. Like, I'm not going to put pressure on you to want to have sex with me. It's fine if you don't want to have sex with me. I'm good. I will be having sex. I want it to be with you. But if you don't want to have it with me, that's cool. Just let me know so I understand where I stand. And then that way we can figure out what to do, right? In that instance, Amelia was saying, yeah, of course I do. Okay, great. At least that gives me that sense of clarity. Cool. So she wants to have sex. She wants to have it with me. Okay, cool. How do we get to make that happen? Like, what is it you need? And for her, there was certain things that were going on for her with the contraception she was on. It was affecting her mood and her hormones and various things. So she chose to come off it. And she chose to change her diet. And she chose to do certain things. She felt better. And it put her in a better mood. And then from there, things changed. But I think it started with that conversation, not going into it with a charge or criticizing her or blaming her or calling her names or whatever. Just reminding her that I love her. I care for her. I want the relationship. I want sex. I want it to be with her. Do you want it with me or not? It's cool if you don't. Just tell me the truth. I'm a big boy. I can take it. I'll be fine. You know, I was very prepared for her to say, no, I don't want sex with you. Okay. So yeah, I think it created a safe space for her, to be honest. And then she led herself to the decision of what she needed to change. And she just went there and things shifted.
You just lay it out. You need to do this. You need to do that. Yeah. I think the thing you said also that reminded me of the coaching tip is you don't want to have a charge around this, right? When you have an emotional charge, the other person could feel it. So get yourself centered, whatever that means to you. Breathwork's a great way of doing it. Taking a walk, whatever it is. And I think all too often, at least for me, when those conversations don't go well, it's because I'm doing so many things. It's like, let's just use you and I as an example. If there was a charge and I'm dealing with one thing, dealing with another, and then you're there, I'm like, hey, by the way, you know, you're an asshole. So change. You know, it just doesn't come across well versus taking a breath, taking a second, saying, hey, and then having a conversation that's important about whatever that is. So that emotional charge is big. And also I would add on to that, not having expectations of the outcome of the conversation, letting the conversation go where it needs to go.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
It's a hard one, right? Because, you know, if I'm going to talk to my wife about a sexless marriage, my expectation is we're going to come out of this having sex or it's going to be better, right? Ideally, we come out of the conversation with headboard banging sex and it's passion. She's amazing. She's screaming my name and, you know, the whole nine. But if I have that expectation, it goes someplace different, then it sets up for disappointment, then sets it up for an argument.
Yeah, big time. You raise a great point, the charge, because I didn't think about that too much, but so many times I've chosen to have a conversation at the wrong time. Oh my
Not me.
God.
Jeez.
And
too many times.
Yeah. And I've just walked away from that conversation like that did not go how I planned.
Yep.
I just saw myself totally short.
Yeah.
Because I'd played out beforehand and I'd gotten clear on things in my own mind. I've done this so many times with Amelia. Then she just tied me in knots. And I'm like, shit. Like, because I've been in the wrong state. I've not been present. I've not been grounded. I've not been calm enough.
Yeah.
And as a result, it's just not gone well, to say the least.
Yeah, I think I know for me, when I go in with a charge, I can walk away more pissed off, more angry, which just then accentuates it, right? And the other person's angry. Now you both walk away. My wife and I used to do this all the time. That was our routine. Is difficult conversations. We'd walk away really bad, and we talk about it, like, why do some couples fight and then have just passionful sex afterwards, and we fight and we end up being more angry? No sex. It'd be like no sex for like a week, right? Which I know some guys listening to this like, I'll take that. But that was for me, that was a bad time, right? No sex for a week. I was like, wow, there's a problem here. And so when I looked at that, the reason is we had expectations of the conversation. We didn't come into it, or I didn't come with it, I'll just talk for myself, from a place of curiosity. And I came in with an expectation I was right, of course, which I usually
Big
am.
one.
Yeah. Yeah.
For you.
Well, it's a big one for me because I usually am. But we all know that. As long as everybody else does, we're good. But yeah, you have this, because a lot of times when you have a difficult conversation, it's because something is out of balance, something's wrong in your eyes. You've already judged it, right? That's a fair assessment. And when you've already judged it, you've already assigned a right and wrong to it in some way. So therefore, you're right. So you got to let go of that. You got to. I really liked your point. You do this really well, and I think when I reflect back after you said it, I've really noticed you doing this more in the last 6 months to a year. This assumption that the other person's, how'd you say it? They have the best intentions, right? I've noticed that in your communication, at least with me and with other people, that you've approached it from a much better way. Because we've had some charged conversations, and you've come back, and the languaging that you use, I know you were in that frame without you saying it. Again, you and I do this professionally, listening to people and coaching, which I've really noticed. And it takes the charge out of me, right? Which pisses me off. You're like, damn it.
I think it's because I genuinely give a shit, quite frankly,
Yeah.
about our relationship.
Yep.
And that's kind of, I'm not in relationships with people that I don't want to be in because I can't fake it. So if I genuinely care about you, which I do, then I genuinely believe that you are doing the best. I sincerely believe that. I doubt it a lot, but I always arrive back at the same point that I sincerely believe it. No, I do, because I know you are.
You do doubt it. You do doubt it a lot, or
I know who you are. I know where your heart's at and where your intentions are, and yeah, you do. Even with my dad, he's a complex guy. Even with him, I know he's doing his best. Now, his best looks different to yours, very different. But I also, to your point, I don't typically people don't want to be assholes, right? Typically.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting thing. And a lot of these guys listening to this, one, they're business owners. We have women listening to this too. Two, they're married. So give a couple takeaways here, or one takeaway. Let's barely it down to one. So you guys listening to this, take action. Right? Just take one friggin' thing and do it, guys. You move your life better. What's one thing they can do in the terms of having difficult conversations, in particular with their spouse?
Particularly with the spouse. Oof. I'm torn between removing the charge and assuming the best. I'll
give you two.
What would yours be?
I thought about assuming the best when you said that. So I'm going to talk about something different, right? Because I have to be different. What I would do is it is removing the charge, but take a breath. Take 5 minutes and do some deep breath work before having the conversation.
All the guys do that in the movement.
Yes, the men do it in the movement.
Help them a lot.
Yeah. That's one of the things we teach them in the hidden motives technique. I mean, I can give a laundry list of things. So guys, here's my call to action to you guys is write down all the difficult conversations you know you need to have. How do you know they're difficult? Because you haven't had them and you don't want to have them. Write down all of the ones you need to have in your marriage, at work, with contractors, people who owe you money, whatever it is. Write down a list of all the difficult conversations and then prioritize that list in order of relationship. So the hierarchy, the people who you are in most relationship with or people you love or care about the most to the least. And the big challenge is start at number 1 and have that conversation with this week. Be a powerful man. Have that conversation this week. You guys, we're here for you. We have a whole community of men just like you. Within our alumni, there's over 2,000 men who are there, who want to have that conversation with you and guide you along the way. You're not alone. We're in your corner. Guys, we'll see you next time on The Powerful Man Show.
All right, guys, that's a wrap for this episode. But as I always say, in the moment of insight, take massive action. You see, there are 2 types of men that listen to a podcast like this. Those that go on from one podcast or show to another, just hoping things are going to change and realizing that they're going to be in the same place month after month, year after year. You see, I was this guy, so I completely get it. You may just not be ready. But there's also a second man that listens to a show just like this. And this is a guy who takes massive action so they can shorten the learning curve, compress time, and get results to be the wolf. See, wolf is an acronym for wise, open, loving, and fierce. Now, ask yourself, which one am I? And just be honest with yourself there. And there's no judgment on my end, but if you're ready to move from deactivated deer mode, which is defend, excuse, explain, react, to activated wolf, wise, open, loving, and fierce, then go over to thepowerfulman.com/grow and go there now. In fact, I'll make it super easy for you. I will even put the link right in the description here so you can just click it and go over there now to learn more. Guys, in the moment of insight, take massive action. Go from deactivated to activated because like I said, life is too short for average. And I'll see you on the next episode.